How do you schedule globally without causing confusion or unfairness? In today's globalized workplace, where teams from New York, Tokyo, Nairobi, and Paris must meet in one Zoom call, scheduling is not just about picking a time. It's a question of fairness, a symbol of respect, and sometimes a barrier to collaboration. If decisions are based solely on one time zone, you risk making half the world feel like outsiders. So how do we schedule globally without causing confusion, lateness, or unfairness? Fair scheduling doesn't come from clocks but from empathy. A good schedule is when everyone feels considered, not just when everyone adjusts. In any organization, scheduling is not just administrative, it's a silent message. Who gets priority, who is central, and who is expected to adjust. This becomes even clearer in global workspaces, where teams are scattered across time zones. A meeting at AM in London may be PM in Singapore or but AM in San Francisco. If the American team always stays up late while the Europeans always meet during work hours, that schedule isn't just inconvenient, it's structurally unfair. Because schedules are not neutral, they mirror power dynamics. When you're the one constantly adjusting, you start feeling less important. This affects your sense of belonging, a key factor in team performance. In organizational psychology, this is known as asymmetric flexibility, where flexibility is granted to one side only. That's where long-term collaboration begins to crack. The solution isn't finding the perfect time, it doesn't exist. The solution lies in transparency, rotation, and dialogue. Instead of trying to please everyone once, share the inconvenience cyclically. Let Asia stay up late today, Europe sacrifices their morning next week. When everyone feels considered, the schedule stops being imposition and becomes shared agreement. And that shared agreement doesn't just boost efficiency, it builds trust. One of the biggest causes of dissatisfaction in global scheduling doesn't lie in the time itself, but in how the time was chosen. If a meeting time arrives like a command from management, with no room for input, attendees often feel disrespected even if the time is technically reasonable. In contrast, when a schedule is shaped through forms, polls, or shared availability grids, a sense of ownership arises. Organizational psychology calls this procedural fairness. Fairness isn't only in outcomes, but in process. When people participate in the process, they're more likely to accept imperfect results. For example, a multinational company uses a 24H team grid, where everyone marks their preferred times. A scheduling tool aggregates this into viable slots, and a vote follows. Seeing your name on the grid, knowing you had a voice, changes your relationship with the meeting. It's no longer imposed, it's CEO-owned. Transparency also prevents misunderstandings. Instead of wondering why this time, people understand this was the best fit for the group. In distributed, digital-first work, transparency shouldn't just live in reports, it must begin with the meeting schedule. Time is a shared resource. How we allocate it reflects how we share power, respect, and trust. In global work environments, time confusion is one of the most common causes of missed meetings, late arrivals, or misaligned responsibilities. A simple email that says 9 a.m. meeting can be interpreted in 3 ways: a.m. whose time? The senders, the recipients, or the servers? This highlights a major issue. How we write and read time isn't standardized in international communication. To fix this, we must apply the UTC fast method, meaning all schedules should include a standard time zone. For example, 9 a.m. GMT, 7 a.m. UTC, and ideally a clickable converter like time is everytimezone.com. Tools like Calendly, Doodle, or World Time Buddy automatically adjust time zones based on user location. Linguistically, Avoid vague phrases like late morning or end of day. Instead, use absolute times with time zones and the 24-hour format, for example 16:30 JST, 7:30 GMT. In intercultural communication, clarity is a form of respect. When you carefully mark the time, you're saying, "I care that you're not misled." This reduces cognitive load and increases accurate participation. From a functional linguistic view, time isn't just a number, it's a relationship act. When time is written well, trust begins. That's why a schedule isn't just a message, it's a strategic document. In a world that's flat but not time-synced, there's no single hour that works perfectly for everyone. This leads to a paradox. If you always pick the most convenient time, you may unintentionally assign permanent inconvenience to the same group, usually those in minority time zones. This is where dynamic fairness must come in. Perfect fairness isn't always possible, but inconvenience can be rotated. This model is known as rotational inconvenience. Each region is prioritized at different times, weekly or monthly. For example, this week the meeting favors us hours, next week Asia, then Europe. When sacrifice is shared, the feeling of I'm treated unfairly shifts to I'm recognized as an equal part of the system. This is a humanistic management philosophy. Fairness doesn't mean everyone is happy, but everyone is considered. In group psychology, this maintains long-term cohesion, because when everyone bears a little discomfort, everyone shares the weight. Rotational models also have an educational function. They teach that comfort is not always a right, sometimes it's a cycle. To implement this, organizations need quarterly meeting roadmaps, time zone allocation charts, and clear rotating time policies. When fairness is institutionalized, it no longer depends on the kindness of the scheduler, but becomes part of organizational culture. In global organizations, the scheduler, often a project manager, coordinator, or team lead, holds a kind of soft power they may not fully realize: the ability to control others' time. Choosing a meeting time may seem like a technical task, but it's actually a design decision that shapes relationships. Who gets the good hours? Who always adjusts? Who can decline a meeting without judgment? This isn't just about productivity, it's about positioning. Organizational psychology calls this invisible asymmetry, power imbalances hidden within daily routines. If scheduling is always top-down, even if it's reasonable, recipients may feel they are merely reacting, not co-creating. That's why a good scheduler is not just tech-savvy, they're empathetic. They don't just set the time, they design presence. Instead of saying, "Here's the time," they ask, "Does this make you feel included?" That question isn't just polite, it breaks the one-way power dynamic. A mature global team negotiates time through transparency and mutual respect, not obedience. To achieve this, organizations must build a scheduling culture where time setting becomes a conversation, not a command. The more humble the scheduler, the stronger the team bond. In our digitized world, where we exist as faces in Zoom squares, the schedule is often the first ethical space a leader can shape with empathy. In global settings, it's not just the time zones that differ, but the very meaning of time. In Germany or Japan, punctuality signals professionalism. Being 3 minutes late might seem disrespectful. In countries like Mexico or Indonesia, time is more flexible. Being a bit late is normal and not perceived as rude. This isn't laziness, it's how cultures define the human-time relationship. In Hall's communication theory, this is the difference between monochronic linear, task-focused, punctual, and polychronic fluid, relationship-centered, flexible. When scheduling globally, enforcing a single standard may impose one culture's norm on others. The solution isn't uniformity, it's creating transitional spaces. For instance, A meeting set at 10 o'clock might allow a 10:05 grace window, or segment the agenda clearly into intro announcements, middle discussion, and end action, so latecomers still catch essentials. Invitations can also set expectations. We begin promptly, but allow 5 minutes for connection adjustments. How you describe time communicates cultural expectations. And in a world increasingly interwoven, time sensitivity is no longer just management, it's a vital intercultural skill, like a second language. A schedule may seem invisible, but it profoundly shapes the work experience within an organization. A fair meeting schedule doesn't just ensure people show up, it ensures no one feels like an outsider. In a digital world, where all interaction happens through screens, time becomes the new space to express organizational culture. A mature organization is not one that's never late, but one that explains clearly, shares inconvenience consciously, and operates with transparency. Being asked what time works for you may seem minor, but it makes you feel seen, counted. And in team psychology, that feeling of belonging is what fuels commitment and sustained performance. So, a schedule isn't just a grid, it's a map of power, respect, and ethics. A good leader can begin building a culture of fairness through one small act, setting meeting times not from power, but from empathy. When done consistently, the schedule becomes an ethical document where fairness is practiced, not just declared. Global scheduling is a quiet test of organizational ethics. It doesn't just reflect coordination skills, it reveals leadership character. When you rotate inconvenience, choose transparently, and stay sensitive to cultural context, you're not just setting a meeting, you're designing a trust ecosystem. Next time, before sending a meeting invite, pause and ask, is this fair? Who's making the sacrifice? And have they been asked? Because sometimes a correct schedule matters less than a shared one.